Ellarku namaskara. I'm Gopi K, your host for today. On behalf of VHS Karnataka, very warm welcome to all the wonderful viewers for the 47th edition of Online Samvada brought to you by VHS Karnataka. We had 46 amazing episodes of Samvada from VHS Karnataka until now, including last session on narco-terrorism in Bollywood by Sri Prashant Sambargiji. What a detailed, well-researched session was that. I'm shocked and saddened to hear about assassination of Japanese Premier Shinzo Abe. Entire humanity misses him. Om Shanti for his Atma.
Really? Oh.
Bharata or Akhanda Bharata is a continuous civilization where its culture, values, traditions rooted to Sanatana Dharma. Many invaders and colonizers entered Bharat in the name of cultural exchange and business in deception. Later, they forcefully, illegally grabbed wealth, land, properties from local Hindus living in this land. Fast forward 2 millions later, millennium later to early 20th century. In 1923, Greece and Turkey had a clean population exchange for brutal massacre of Greeks in Turkey. In 1947, we had partition. Bharat had a partition purely on the name of religion. What did Dr. Ambedkar, B.R. Ambedkar said, who framed our constitution then? To talk about this, we have a special guest speaker, Dr. S.R. Leela ji, ex-MLC and an author. Dr. Leela ji.
Namaste, thank you.
Dr. Leela ji is from a small village, Sampangere in Kolar district, Karnataka, pursued her studies in Bengaluru. After her science graduation, she focused her attention on Sanskrit education and studies. Dr. Leela worked on a Sanskrit as a Sanskrit professor in various colleges before taking voluntary retirement in 2005 NMKRV College for Women. She is a prolific writer and renowned author. Until now, 30 books have been published. The recent one being Kannada translation of V.D. Savarkar's excellent book called Six Glorious Epochs of Indian History, was released in this February this year. She has translated many important works to Kannada and English. She is a freelancer and contributed to many leading papers of Karnataka. She has produced many documentary films in Sanskrit, which is a rare achievement. In the latest is Shiva Sutra Jala, based on Panini Maheshwara Sutras. Dr. Leela is deeply involved in social service and educational activities for a long time. In recognition of this, the government of Karnataka nominated her as MLC in 2008 from the education field, a rare opportunity for a Sanskrit scholar. She was perhaps the only MLC to submit a report card at the end of her tenure. She utilized the opportunity to serve about 300 villages in various ways, member of National Library, Government of India, and member of 2 committees attached to the Cultural Department, Central Government. We are also joined by Sri Nikunshaji, VHS Karnataka State President, and Sri Tejas, who is still down with COVID, recovering right now. Without any further ado, now I request Dr. Leela ji to enlighten us, all of us in fact, on what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar ji wrote about the partition and clean transfer of population at the time of partition. Please, Dr. Leela ji, welcome. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Gopi ji. I'm really very glad to be on this platform. It's a very prestigious one, working for the interests of India in the cultural, historical, and other fields. So I am naturally attracted towards this platform and I feel it's a very good opportunity for me to present my views on a book which I have recently translated into Kannada, of course, in a abridged manner, because the matter contained in it is extremely important for India, and that too, the book written by a great thinker, scholar of modern India, that is Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. So I am really very, very happy to be speaking on this topic on this platform. Thank you so much. And now, I am going to give you a small brief about what I am going to present in this 50 minutes, the following 50 minutes. Of course, my talk is based on this book called as Thoughts on Pakistan. See, this book was first published in 1941. And there was a second edition to this, which was named, the title was different then. Then it was, the second edition was known as Pakistan or the Partition of India. So there are two titles to the same book. The second edition carried a little more material in terms of appendices and maps, and also some other extra views, extra portions regarding the chapters that were earlier included. So fundamentally, there is not much difference between the two editions. I am following now for my presentation. I am taking this as the base, the first edition, which is known as Thoughts on Pakistan. Now, let me tell you in the very beginning that Thoughts on Pakistan can also be retitled as Hindu-Muslim issue or problem, the fundamental issue between the Hindus and the Muslims. That is what is the matter contained, a detailed analysis of this issue is the matter of this book, Thoughts on Pakistan. Now, let me give you a view of the contents of the book so that you will understand how methodical and systematically Dr. Ambedkar has gone on this issue. He has taken this subject very seriously, unlike others who are making passing remarks and trying to, assuage the feelings which were not to be assuaged. Where Ambedkar ji has gone into this problem in a very detailed manner, in a very critical manner, and has taken a lot of efforts to give a lot many, maps and also statistics in support of his presentation, the contents of this book. Now, let me tell you that this book is a huge one, consisting of almost 380 pages, nearly 400 pages in royal size. It has got 4 parts, part 1, 2, 3, and 4. And each part is divided into 3 chapters each. Each part is divided into 3 chapters further. Now, I'll just read out the captions that are put on each part and also the chapters, so that we will understand the contents in a brief manner. Now, part 1 is named as Muslim Case for Pakistan, and it is divided into 3 chapters, and that is the 3 chapters are: what does the League demand? A nation calling for a home. Third one is escape from degradation. These are the 3 chapters. Part 2 has 3 more chapters. Hindu case against Pakistan. Breakup of unity. part 2 is named as Hindu Case Against Pakistan, and the chapters are Breakup of Unity, Weakening of the Defenses, and Pakistan and Communal Peace. These are the 3 chapters. Now, part 3 is named as What If Not Pakistan? What If Not Pakistan? And the chapters under this caption are Hindu Alternative to Pakistan, Muslim Alternative to Pakistan, Lessons from Abroad. See, Lessons from Abroad is a very interesting topic. Just now, Gopi was mentioning how the other countries, much smaller in area, they tackled their problem of this communal coexistence, which actually is very, very tough. And the part 4, which is named as Pakistan and the Malays. Pakistan and the Malays has got 3 chapters: social stagnation, communal aggression, and national frustration. See, this one chapter tells us how deeply the Islamic society, the Islam worldview, and the people of Islam, they are entirely different from other people. And normally, when we speak of Ambedkar, our Ambedkarites and other scholars, normally they say Ambedkar has criticized Hinduism. Of course, he has done it. And the caste and other malice that existed in Hindu society have been analyzed by Dr. Ambedkar. But equally, he has criticized, analyzed, and also offered solutions to the problems of Islam, which are not at all mentioned by others. So this is a very important chapter, and it also gives the support for the creation of Pakistan. Now, let me go about in a systematic way why Ambedkar, as to tell you why Ambedkar advocated this population exchange. See, population exchange is something which no other thinker or political leader of India has ever said, including Veer Savarkar. And of course, Veer Savarkar's views are also included here. That's a different matter. It is only Ambedkar who gave this solution to the vexed problem of Hindu-Muslim struggle. So this is something very original and extremely important. And just we know the result of it. Consequently, because Ambedkar's thoughts were not given any consideration by the then political leaders who were involved in the transfer of power, getting the transfer of power. You know the results of it, how much we are suffering even today. And Ambedkar gives a detailed exposition of the problems faced by Hindus in the presence of Muslims, more so. Of course, Hindus also fought with the Muslims, but the Muslims as alien people coming from a different land, how much they made the Hindus suffer, because the main reason, he says, is, as everybody knows, because they did not come just to grab land or loot the property. They had a very, very sinister design, he says, of planting Islam in this land, because it was their worldview. Islam is the only religion, and therefore all other religions, all other faiths, all other manners and customs of people should not be tolerated. So this is the view with which they came, and he gives a very detailed, graphic, and also extremely painful, I mean, when you read it, a very painful account of this. Now, what is the, so that is why, because it is not a practical solution to live together, it was advocated that Pakistan and India be separated. based on population and also religion. Now, what was Ambedkar's views? What were Ambedkar's views on Pakistan? See, his views were very clear. He always advocated that Pakistan should be created. But of course, he argues out his point. He had been a original thinker, a barrister, and a great scholar. So he collects all the evidence that is possible to argue out his point. That's one thing. And he gives historical, political, and social reasons, and finally spiritual also, to advocate his point, to reason out his point that Pakistan should be created. And all the Muslims, they should go to Pakistan. They should be living a happy, homogeneous life in the land of their own. Because after all, people are guided by their religion, and more so the Muslims. For them, being loyal to the territory is not at all the issue. They are the most loyal people to their religion more than anyone else. Therefore, they should have the right to create their own land wherein they can live peacefully without the trouble, without the agitations or the struggles caused by the people whom they hate. Actually, he quotes Maulana Shobani, who says that Hindus we hate. He quotes a long sentence of Maulana Shobani saying that because we hate Hindus, we cannot live together. Therefore, we need a separate land for ourselves. These are all some of the great leaders who are voicing their opinions in favor of Pakistan. And Ambedkar gives a lot many quotations starting from 1920 onwards, how each and every Muslim leader was voicing for it. Of course, he also records some of the early viewpoints, like Jinnah himself, who was considering himself a nationalist, and he didn't want Pakistan in the first phase of this struggle. But later, he also joined the bogie, and who gave the name Pakistan, and how it was even the great nationalists, so-called nationalists, they also gave up their original idea, and they were voting for the Muslim League. Now, these are some of the points, and he gives a lot many evidences to bring home his thesis. Of course, the main thesis is that Pakistan should be created and people should be distributed. This is the main thesis. And all the other material that is given, all the other arguments, they go to support these two main points. That creation of Pakistan is very essential, he says. Now, let me give you some of the arguments advanced by Dr. Ambedkar. Now, he says, since it is a very huge book, I cannot be giving all the points, at least some of the main, reasons that Ambedkar ji has given here, that could be presented. Now, he says, there is a deep sense of hatred between Hindus and Muslims. There is one whole chapter on the atrocities committed by Muslims under the short heading, Breakup of Unity. You see, he makes a very detailed study of this, presents it in an extremely varied form, because he had to counter the argument and also the actions of Mr. Gandhi, who was trying to build up the impossible, that is Hindu-Muslim unity. And in order to support his point, he gives a number of instances. Now, from 1920 to 1940, how many communal, disturbances took place, and what were the consequences of it, how many people died, etc., etc. It's a harrowing tale. Even to go through it today, it is very painful. But Ambedkar gives this entire list from 1920 to 1940, because it was in 1920 that the Muslim League started saying that we want a Pakistan, we want a separate state for ourselves. You see, here he has been very generous in understanding the spirit of the people. See, every community wants its own land for a peaceful coexistence, and coexistence is possible within their own religious groups, not outsiders. Therefore, Muslims' demand for a separate land is valid, he says, and there are so many arguments advanced in support of it. But what I am presenting here is the people, especially Hindus. You see, then there were three major players: Hindu Mahasabha, Congress, and Muslim League. Hindus who represented both Hindu Mahasabha and Congress, they were not for the partition of the country, whereas Muslim League was insisting. So, in order to tell the Hindus, at one stage, actually, he says this whole book, most of it is meant for the Hindus to understand the vexed situation. It's not for the Muslims, because Muslims have been very clear and consistent in their demand, whereas Hindus have not been. They have not been understanding what exactly is going on the ground, and therefore it is for their understanding I am writing this big book, he says. In the epilogue, he says. Anyway, so breakup of unity is something which he noticed. Now, in the Muslims, you see, they came to this country. How? Now, here is what was the purpose of Islam coming to India? This is presented a historical review of the presence of Islamic religion and Islamists are given in this chapter. So, what he says is, before the Hindus complain about the destruction of the unity of India, let them make certain that the unity they are harping upon does exist. What unity is there between Pakistan and Hindustan? He starts, and he gives a number of instances, starting from the first Muslim invasion of Muhammad bin Qasim from Arab land. The Muslim invasions were not undertaken merely out of lust or for loot or conquest. There is no doubt that there is a sinister design behind it, and that was, but there is no doubt that striking a blow at the idolatry and polytheism of Hindu and establishing Islam in India was also one of the aims of this expedition. In one of his dispatches to Hajjaj, Muhammad bin Qasim is quoted to have said, see, he sends a letter after defeating Dahir, the king of Sindh. The nephew of Raja Dahir, his warriors and principal officers have been dispatched, and the infidels converted to Islam or destroyed. Instead of idol temples, mosques and other places of worship have been created. The khutbah is read, the call to prayers is raised, so that devotions are performed at stated hours. So the takbir and praise of the Almighty God are offered every morning and evening. And on receiving this letter, you know what answer or the response he got? He said the Hajjaj has sent a letter to Muhammad. In return to this, he says, except that you give protection to all, great and small alike, make no difference between enemy and friend. God says, give no quarter to infidels, but cut their throats. This is what a judge sent to Muhammad. Then know that this is the command of the great God. So in this way, he goes on, he is quoting from the historians of those great invaders, Muhammad Ghazni, Muhammad Ghori, Taimur, and many others. He is not paraphrasing what has been given in historical books. He is actually quoting from the historical works of these invaders. So Muhammad of Ghazni also looked upon his numerous invasions of India as the waging of a holy war. See, he is trying to tell Hindus that there is a serious difference between their understanding of the world and your understanding. Therefore, why don't you come to terms with the reality? At Utbi, the historian of Muhammad, in describing his rights, he demolished idol temples and established Islam. He captured so many cities, killed the polluted wretches, destroying the idolaters and gratifying Muslims. Same strain he goes on, and then he quotes quotes some lines from the Memoir of Taimur also. My object in the invasion of Hindustan is to lead a campaign against the infidels, to convert them to the true faith according to the command of Muhammad, etc. And again, and very horrible, even to read fully, it's very disturbing even today. So what is, however, important to bear in mind is that with all their internecine conflicts, they were all united by one common objective, and that was to destroy the Hindu faith. See, here he is bringing about one point. See, not that all invaders, they were united, though they were wedded to their faith. They had their own, internal differences, but they were united in one thing, and that is, what is, however, important to bear in mind is that with all their internecine conflicts, they were all united by one common objective, and that was to destroy the Hindu faith. So Dr. Ambedkar makes no, makes no doubt or creates any doubt in the minds of the readers that Islam had the very objective of hating Hindus and destroying them. That is one of the main objectives. So how can Hindus hope to live with such a warring kind of evil kind of mentality adopted by so many people with them? So this is it. And he also quotes Muhammad of Ghazni, and he says, of course, Hindustan is the country of infidels for all of them. The slaughtering of infidels seems to be one thing that gave Muhammad particular pleasure. This is the historian of Muhammad of Ghazni writing. So in one attack on Chandra in AD 1019, many infidels were slain or taken prisoners, and the Muslims paid no regard to booty until they had satiated themselves with the slaughter of the infidels and worshippers of the sun and fire. So he gives it is about 30 pages in which complete history, the destructive history of the invaders is given in a very succinct manner. And you see, Qutbuddin Aibak also is said to have destroyed nearly 1,000 temples. Today people are fighting over this, and the historians, Islamic historians themselves have mentioned how many temples were destroyed by the rulers, by their masters. So there is a complete and detailed study of this, and the Qutb, the 27 idol temples that in Delhi, which is now in is a controversy. It is not actually no controversy at all. It's a fact, but it is made into a controversy. So these are all the things. The facts mentioned by Dr. Ambedkar are so very, commanding that you cannot give them up. That is one thing. So this is a very big, fallout of the Islamic invasion of India, that they came with their sense of hate Hindu policy. That is the policy they adopted. Therefore, you cannot take these people so easily. And having stayed here for nearly, he calculates it as 762 years, at least one or the other part of India was ruled by these people, and therefore they have cultivated the habit of saying that they are the rulers. Even today, you can find so many, you see, these jihadis telling us that we have ruled this country for so many years. How can you say we are not, we don't belong to this, etc. And they also are saying that you can leave this country because we were the masters and we are going to be the masters. That is the tone and tenor adopted by some of these people. So it is very important that we should understand the history of these people and how great thinking minds, the original minds and scholars have understood this and advocated certain solutions. The solutions are not, after all, carried away. Are not carried on. Therefore, we are facing the problems. That is one thing. Now, after giving a detailed, list of the kind of, atrocities committed by mostly Muslims, he also gives the report of the struggles and how many Hindus died, how many Muslims died, and what happened, who triggered the situation to go out of hand, etc. All that. But finally, he makes a remark. But the atrocities committed by the jihadis are more in number and very destructive when compared to the other side. This is also a statement made in this book. So, not that the Hindus always kept quiet. They had their own share of contribution. But ultimately, when you draw a balance, the destructive part belongs to the Islam more than the Hindus. That is what he says. Now, I want to tell you the take up, because we are running short of time. There are so many other things I wanted to give, but I'll take up this exchange of population. Exchange of population is one thing which is very important from my point of view, because no other thinker has ever thought of this for India. And in order to present this viewpoint, which is so original, Dr. Ambedkar builds up the whole, edifice of his arguments. See how different, how difficult it is for Hindus to live with Muslims, he says. And the answer he gives for this is, that is the vexed problem of Hindu-Muslim coexistence. After a detailed argument, he comes to this conclusion. The answer is that in a large part of the area affected by the project of the League, a homogeneous state can be created by merely shifting the boundaries. But in the rest, homogeneity can be produced only by shifting the population. You see, Muslim League was demanding certain areas, and let us agree for that. Now, by drawing boundaries, we can create that portion as Pakistan. But what about other areas? I mean, throughout the country, we have these Muslims. So how do we create a Muslim within the Bharat Varsha, which apart from those northwest frontiers? So he says the boundaries, but in the rest, homogeneity can be produced only by shifting the population. This is the original theory he has been advocating. And in order to establish, support his idea, he takes up the viewpoints expressed by many others. For instance, Scum, he says, he was not very extremely confident that his idea was accepted by all. In fact, he says, some scoff at the idea of the shifting and exchange of population, but those who scoff can hardly be aware of the complications which a minority problem gives rise to, and the failures attendant upon almost all the efforts made to soothe their relations. So what he says is, those who scoff at, those who say it is impracticable, they have no idea of what the depth of the problem, the destructive tendency it carries with it. Therefore, he says, and one thing that you will be deeply impressed on reading this book is, he considers all the possible viewpoints, even allegations, and he answers that. So people who scoff at this idea of population exchange, they do not understand the situation. They do not understand the complications. He says, see, which was without, this is what happened in Turkey, Greece and Bulgaria. They created homogeneous states by applying this theory of population. Those who scoff at the idea of transfer of population will do well to study the history of the minority problem as it arose between Turkey, Greece, and Bulgaria. If they do, they will find that after trying all methods of solving the problem, it was agreed between these countries that the only effective way of solving it was to exchange population. See, he argues in at one point why there should be a of course he agrees for separating, that is Pakistan should be created. Now why should it be created? Is it just geographical boundaries being drawn? No. What he says is, Ambedkar argues, after all, after finding a nation, after you become free, of course all this is post-independent thought. After you become free, should you not live, don't you have the right to live a peaceful life, a homogeneous life? This peaceful, homogeneous life which everyone strives for is not possible with warring communities living together. This is the thesis he makes. Therefore, Muslims who have a very different tendency, who have always looked upon Hindus with hatred, they cannot live happily. They cannot be having a peaceful coexistence with Hindus. And Hindus who are suffering already because of the atrocities committed, historical atrocities, they are also seething under so much of humiliation. How can they also live together in peace? This is the main point Ambedkar advocates, and I think that is a very practical situation he has addressed. And he says this homogeneous living and peaceful life is the essential, is the right of any nation. And to have that, one has to create the situation. So that is the reason why he advocates population exchange. Now he says, now how far does the creation of Pakistan remove the communal question from Hindustan? That is a very legitimate question and must be considered. It must be admitted that by the creation of Pakistan, Hindustan is not freed of the communal question. While Pakistan can be made a homogeneous state by redrawing its boundaries, you see how deeply he is analyzing the problem. If Muslim majority areas are created as Pakistan, that is okay. But what about Hindustan? See, while Pakistan can be made a homogeneous state by redrawing its boundaries, Hindustan must remain a composite state. The Muslims are scattered all over Hindustan. Though they are mostly congregated in towns and no ingenuity in the matter of redrawing of boundaries can make it homogeneous. The only way to make Hindustan homogeneous is to arrange for exchange of population. Until that is done, it must be admitted that even with the creation of Pakistan, creation of Pakistan, the only way to make Hindustan homogeneous is to arrange for exchange of population. Until that is done, it must be admitted that even with the creation of Pakistan, the problem of majority versus minority will remain in Hindustan as before and will continue to produce disharmony in the body politic of Hindustan. See, can anything be more clear than this? More supportive argument can be adduced in favor of population extent. Now, this is because time is running out. I will make one very important point Dr. Ambedkar has taken up here, and that is the problem of, you see, women. Throughout, you see, in Indian history, we are all very much aware of how women were treated by the Islamists. And even if you, even today, if you go to Rajasthan, you cannot stop shedding tears for the thousands and thousands of young and beautiful women who jumped to fire. Why did they do it? See, this is something extraordinary aspect, a trait of Hindustan. Many countries have been occupied, many people have suffered at the time of wars, and many have been, you see, taken to slavery. Many things have happened. But in Hindustan, it was a very different kind of thing. Women, they preferred death than becoming the slaves of the people who won over them. And that is also the one of the reasons for this preference is the way the women were treated. And Dr. Ambedkar makes a very important I say point in this. So I want to give a I want to quote that particular portion here. Let me quote. I am just taking this. This is the attitude of women. See, after presenting so many cases of atrocities, he makes this point. The attitude towards women folk is a good index of the friendly or unfriendly attitude between the two communities. He is telling us how Hindus and Muslims are a warring community, and one community is extremely destructive and it can humiliate people to any extent. So how can you coexist with such people? Even today we are seeing that. Now, with this opening remark, he says, the attitude towards women folk is a good index. He gives one tale. As such, the case which happened on 27/6/36 in the village of is taken from the opening speech of the Crown Council when the trial of 40 Mohammedan accused began on the 10th August 1936, according to the prosecution. He gives a story. See, there lived in Govindpur a Hindu by name Radha Vallabh. He had a son Harendra. There lived also in Govindpur a Muslim woman whose occupation was to sell milk. The local Muslims of the village suspected that Harendra had illicit relationship with this Muslim milk woman. They resented that a Muslim woman should be in the keeping of a Hindu, and they decided to wreak their vengeance on the family of Radha Vallabh for this insult. A meeting of the Muslims of Govindpur was convened, and Harendra was summoned to attend this meeting. Soon after Harendra went to the meeting, cries of Harendra were heard. It was found that Harendra was assaulted and was lying senseless in the field where the meeting was held. The Muslims of Govindpur were not satisfied with this assault. They informed Radha Vallabh that unless he, his wife, and his children embrace Islam, the Musliman will not feel satisfied for the wrong his son had done to them. You see, even while Radha Vallabh was thinking about it, that was in the evening. The next day they came, and because Radha Vallabh had not given his consent to convert to, his wife, who was sweeping the floor, she was taken away forcibly, and a gang rape was done on her, especially in the fields. She was taken to the field and she fell unconscious. The narration continues saying that after some time she regained consciousness and started running towards her home. And the people who were watching her, they followed her. That is, the Muslims who had treated her in such a bad way, they followed her. And when this woman came home and latched from inside, the she was forcibly, after breaking open the door, she was forcibly drawn out, and again she was to be, gang raped. And for her good fortune, a neighbor of her by name lady, so not continue with the what they intended, contemplated on to rape her again. What they do is they unclothe the person Radha Vallabh, that is her husband, the father of Hiren, and he was, taken out in the streets. And all the other Muslims, what they do is they keep guard so that no person goes out and gives a police complaint. So this is the kind of harrowing experience that this family had to go through. And he makes a very detailed account of this particular incident because it came up in the court, and 40 of them were accused, and 3 or 4 of them were given punishment, they were hanged, etc. It is mentioned. So look at the care and concern Dr. Ambedkar has for the people, their feelings, their peaceful life. I mean, which other person has advocated this kind of solution? It may sound very strange. Many people might not have thought of what Ambedkar has thought. But is it not original? Is it not workable? Is it not conducive to the health, wealth, and peaceful coexistence of the people within the community? That's very much there. But still, Ambedkar's words were not taken care of. I feel extremely sorry that a golden opportunity was lost because Ambedkar's words were not heeded. You see, 3 people, 3 original thinkers, great contributors to the modern India, or to the freedom struggle, and also many other aspects of the social aspects of Bharat. 3 great individuals, great men of Bharat Mata, that is Veer Savarkar ji, Ambedkar ji, and our Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. All the 3 were treated very badly. They were sidelined, and their contributions were not hailed at all. So Ambedkar also falls into this. And what is the reason? Who did it? You know, it is the Congress, which had the sole, entitlement policy of giving and taking, because they considered they are the people who got the freedom for India. They are also the people who can dictate terms to others. This is what happened post-independence. We all know about it. But it is extremely sad that such, workable solutions, such people-friendly, suggestions were not taken care of by the masters, by the people at the helm of affairs then. I, after reading this particular book, was extremely unhappy to see that how, to find that how, our own people did not care for the ordinary folk. And it was extremely, good on part of Dr. Ambedkar to have given a detailed account of the whole situation from the viewpoint of the commoners. He says the harrowing experiences of Hindus as minorities living in a Muslim majority country is unthinkable, he says. And you see, that is proved so very well by even such a distinguished personality as Sri Joginder Mandal, who went to Pakistan and had to return without any, you see, results just within 1 year. And he has his own story to tell. So this is a huge book where we can, you see, read out so many lines, so many paragraphs, so many instances in support of what Dr. Ambedkar has been giving us his main thesis. But I will stop here because it is time, isn't it? Should I? And I'll just quote only one point. And he quotes so many Western authors who have applied themselves to these, you see, social problems people face, especially people, the groups of people coming from different backgrounds. When they are forced to come together, what are the problems they face? And in support of it, he gives so many Western scholars. And one person by name Renan has written about the problems, the mentality of the jihadis. And he says, Muslims, they hate science. Why? And he has taken up that question, because all this, you see, gives, concentrates towards one point, that they have a very different world view. They are only loyal to their religion, and nothing else matters, and everything else is only secondary for them. So he concludes with this, and therefore he advocates Hindus to take up this issue very seriously and apply. And we all know how it did not take place. And even after partition, you see, what are the problems we are facing, and also the amount of massacre that happened during partition. It is heart-rending story. And while reading this book, the experiences post-independence is also recounted by us. And we feel again and again sorry that Dr. Ambedkar's words were not heeded. That is very, very unfortunate on the part of the leaders of that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Leela ji. I mean, it's really heartening to see the amount of research you have done on Dr. Ambedkar's book. And I mean, there are a lot of facts you have put forward, gives us goosebumps, where his vision has been he has visionized a lot of problems that have been coming today 70, 80 years back. So that is an amazing thing. I mean, to visualize and vision for a visionary like Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Yes. And a few questions I have regarding that. Why was Dr. Ambedkar is in disagreement with Gandhi, who tried to bring about Muslim unity?
That's very well known, but to say it again, Gandhiji was not a practical person. He compares Gandhiji with Savarkar regarding the partition discussions. When the partition discussions were going on, how these people conducted themselves, and how they viewed this particular serious issue. He says, you see, he takes up the case of Khilafat. In Khilafat, what Gandhi did, he was actually supporting the violence of Muslims and preaching non-violence to the Hindus. And because Dr. Ambedkar has done so much research, and he has found the final thesis that these two are very different people. They cannot come together. Gandhi was hoping against hope that there should be unity between Hindus and Muslims, which was not at all possible. And it was so very much evident from the Khilafat movement and the way the Muplahs treated Hindus. And there was so much outrage then. Many people wrote to Gandhi about these things, but he did not condemn them. And in the killing of Shraddhanandaji and many others, how he always sided with the Muslims and said they are my dear brothers. And he also advocated Hindus to submit to the violence of the Muslims. This is something very special, no? What a saint he is. He is only saying, giving his moral lessons only to his folk, not to the others. So what he found, he relates all this, and he also tells how this unity doctrine that he has been advocating has completely been smashed by the Muslims. He gives so many instances, and therefore he says on this particular issue, Mr. Gandhi was totally a sentimental person. He never had any understanding of the ground reality. So he never advocated Gandhi's principles on this particular matter, and he always opposed him. In contrast, he tells, you see, Veer Savarkar is so clear, he is courageous in stating his position. See, Savarkar also had understood, like Ambedkar, Savarkar also had made a deep study of the social evils that beset both Hindu and Muslim society. You know, he is the one who has made a detailed analysis of the caste problem in Hindu society, at the same time Muslims. But because he knew that, he did not, of course, advocate partition, or he did not agree for partition, but he said Muslims cannot be considered less equals. They are equal citizens, but we don't want a Muslim, a Muslim to head India again. Another Aurangzeb, we don't want him heads. So this is the difference between Gandhi and Savarkar, as Ambedkar saw and portrayed in his book.
Oh, very good analysis, ma'am. Again, you've taken Dr. Ambedkar's viewpoint and Savarkar's viewpoint and also Gandhi's viewpoint. You put it nicely. And coming to other point is, was Dr. Ambedkar a Hindu hater? I mean, many are, I mean, of late, like the leftist ecosystem, the so-called, they've been like
not
advocating.
always people have been saying that, but only what I can say is people who don't read his works, such ignorant people can only make this kind of statements. He is not. He has made a detailed analysis of the Hindu society, and he gives so many reasons why Hindus are far better as a people than any other religious groups. That I will not go to, but I'll give you one very simple instance where he supports Hindus. See, in 1920s, a USA's author by name Catherine Mayo, she wrote a book on India, which is named as, which is titled as Mother India. And what she wrote in that book was the evil practices, the social evils that existed in India, including the child marriage and the lack of dynamism, etc., which was there then. You see, Indians were not always like that. But what she did was, she completely was blind to all the good points that existed in Hindu society. She only highlighted the weak points, the evils. We also call them evils. So she wrote this book. Now, Ambedkar takes up this and she says, And he says, see, when this book came out, everybody condemned it, saying that it is only a partial view. It is a selective presentation of the issue. It does not give a comprehensive opinion or comprehensive picture of Bharat, they say, including Gandhi. He also she writes like a drain inspector. So she was watching only the drains of India, not other things, not the beautiful bhavans we had. Anyway, and you see, Lala Lajpat Rai ji, he was deeply affected by this negative picture of Bharat, and he, as an author, says, I can answer her only through another book, because she has written a book. Let me answer her through another book. He wrote a detailed book by name Unhappy India. It was titled as Unhappy India. And this man, a great scholar, an extremely dynamic person, a patriot of a great power, you know what he writes? He had by that time spent some 10 years in USA. So he knew the society of USA, and therefore he gives a very interesting examples in comparison to what Catherine Mayo had to say. So that is one thing. And quoting all this, Ambedkar says, all these Hindu scholars, they have not noticed one point, he says, and that is, when Catherine Mayo writes about the Hindu society or India, she does not take into consideration the Muslims. Muslims are as much a part of the Bharatiya society. Why she is making negative remarks on only Hindu people? Why she is casting aspersions on one portion of Bharat, not Islam? In fact, he takes up this point and gives a detailed study of Islamic society, and he comes out with the fact that Islamic society was so bad that even Hindu society cannot match for it in terms of caste. And he gives the types of caste they have and how they treat each other, etc., etc. It's more than 4. It is 400 castes he gives. So he is here voicing his opinion against the author who was presenting Hindus in a bad light, which is not a reality. And he wants anybody who writes about India to include the other portion of the population, namely Islamic people also. So here he is not a Hindu hater. See, people who read such books, we must also be open-minded and look at all the statements made, all the viewpoints expressed. Then only we can arrive at a proper decision. It is made by many people, made out that he is a Hindu hater, and therefore Hindus also hate him. That is the kind of bad situation, unlucky situation that it is not so. See, for me, Ambedkar is one of the most brilliant original thinkers of 20th century India has produced.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. And any suggestion of continuing for this earlier question, previous question, which talked about Hindu-Muslim unity, and Dr. Ambedkar has mentioned, that's still valid even today, isn't it? Yes. Any leader even today has to look into that detailedly, and shouldn't reinvent the wheel again and again. You don't want to go and reinvent the wheel, isn't it? So,
you see,
go ahead.
Yes.
Now, other point that made is like you made a point about regarding the child marriages and the include even the sati. It wasn't there 400 500 years back. It came after the invaders came into picture.
Yes.
So invaders made it like,
yes. See, you are right. Social practices have not been the same. The customs have been changing. See, for instance, I'll give you one example. Veer Savarkar speaks of Sindhu Bandi. See, there are so many evils that have crept into the Hindu society, and that is Rote Bandi, Lote Bandi, Beti Bandi, etc., Sindhu Bandi, Shuddhi Bandi, these things. Sindhu Bandi is, without going into the details, Sindhu Bandi is not crossing that is banishment of crossing the ocean. You see, don't you find people in ancient India taking to the seas? And they were the earliest traders. Columbus was brought to the shores by Indian traders. That is recent. But there are references. Huh?
Vasco
Vasco da Gama. Okay. This Dutch fellow. Yes.
Yeah.
And you see, in ancient literature, you have a umpteen number of references to people taking to seas. That is one thing. Now, what about the South Indian great emperors like the Pandyas of Madhura and others? They were known as Three Samudradhishwaras. You see, in the east, they had crossed the seas and had gone, spread their culture and built such monumental buildings. And even today, this Onkar is the biggest temple available on the face of the earth. When people could take to seas and cross the seas, go there and establish their culture, their kingdoms, and make people highly learned and cultured, how can we say this Sindhu Bandi is a ancient practice? It was not. As you said rightly, this is something which was introduced to Hindu society because of the Sindhu occupation, Sindhu river occupation. But beyond Sindhu, there were extremely destructive and dangerous people. That is these Islamist jihadis, who treated the people who crossed the river very badly. That is also the reason why our women took to fire rather than becoming coming to their grip. So Sindhu Bandi is something which has been introduced to the Hindu as an evil to the Hindu society because of the aftermath of Islamic invasion. Now, I would suggest that all these practices, many practices, they should be traced to their origins properly. And therefore, we should study Indian history in this way, pre-Islamic and post-Islamic, in so many ways. That would help us understand the situation. So what we are practicing today is not 4,000 years old. Even Manu, they are simply torturing Manu. Where Manu was a Kshatriya, he was not at all a Brahmin. And what are the good things he has said? In Indonesia, Manu's statue is placed before the parliament. They follow Manu. But in India, Manu is such a vulgar, hated person. See, these are all narratives created. So, of course, Ambedkar has also mentioned it once or twice, but it needs to be properly understood.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for the answer. I mean, before, if you look at 2000 years back, I mean, there are a lot of cultural activities going on through sea, ocean, and whether it can, even to the Egyptian, the Indians were from Bharat rather. So Bharat, the trade was there between Egyptians, even further. And there are information that even they went to the other side of the globe, that is to the South Mayan civilization. So they were interacting with Mayans and other Aztecs and Mayans and as well. So there is a cultural connectivity way before anybody can talk about. And Indians were the first, Bharatiyas were the first to invent the navigation system those days, maybe 10,000 years back. We don't know. We need to do a lot of research on those.
Gopi, you are right. The very word navigation comes from nauka, navika. See, this is a Sanskrit word for a ship, nauka. So navigation is derived from that. Yes.
Thank you, madam. Nikunji, any questions? Nikunji? Uh, any questions you have, Nikunji?
Yeah, I have one question. Madam, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can.
Can you
I can hear you.
Can you hear me, Gopi?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me, madam?
Yes,
Yeah.
please go ahead. I can. Yes.
Okay. I would like to ask you, what is one thing that the viewers of this program should know about Ambedkar so that they can progress to a large extent? One thing which you think is very important in today's.
Yes. See, like many other things and people, Ambedkar is also misrepresented. That is one thing I want to tell our people. They should study the works of Ambedkar properly and give expression to his views, having read all the things in the right spirit. Today, what he hated most is being considered the loved policy of Ambedkarites. He did not want jihadis to tackle minority Hindus. That is why he advocated, Pakistan for Muslims and Hindustan for Hindus. But today, many of them are going along with Muslims and the what do they say? Jai Bhim, Jai Meme. This is something very dangerous. If you read this book, people will understand what is the inherent, destructive tendencies that work in the minds of some people and which can completely destroy you later. And I don't think we need very many examples. Just Joginder Mandal is enough. So those who are going, associating themselves with OICs and others, they should be, thinking twice before they do it. But most unfortunately, they don't read. And Ambedkar himself says, "Hello, read. First read the book, then you come to the table." That's what he says. Most unfortunately, people don't read. And he has criticized all the Hindus, Muslims, and all other people who are not, practical and who are not working for the welfare of the people. That is one thing you can find a common trait with regard to his approach to all sections of people. He criticized Gandhi as a Hindu who is not working for the welfare of Hindus. And similarly, Savarkar, he criticizes for his own reasons. That's different. We will take it up another time. He only says, he recognizes, with regard to Savarkar, it is very interesting, his comments. He says they are two different people. But how can he not accept partition? And these people speak of Akhanda Bharat. I mean, when Burma was separated, when Afghanistan was separated from Bharat, why these people did not object? So this separation of geographical, territories, the lands, is not due to something. It is historical, reality. Is it not? Therefore, understanding the nature of the invaders and still not accepting partition is something illogical, he says. That is the condemnation leveled against Savarkar. And he also says, how can the husband and wife are totally opposed to each other and they have come to the conclusion that they cannot live together? Those who want a divorce can be forced to live under one roof. This is the example he gives. So between Hindus and Muslims. So I think people should understand this. We have not been one, and we are not going to be one. The recent say war cries that we hear from many quarters, it is telling us what they are and what we are. We have not been facing them. There are so many issues connected with it, but all over the world. Now, Ambedkar has proved he is vindicated when he advocated this theory. So, thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for the answer, detailed answer. And you've done intensive study on Dr. Ambedkar's book, and you're translated the book, and your proofing is going on right now, I think so, right? Can you please explain on those?
It will be out in another 1 or 2 months, soon after I get the forward.
So the book will be ready in Kannada in a few months down the line, and we would like to know the name of the book. Then hopefully you can provide the name of the book as well later on, or now, if it's left to you.
Later, because I am thinking of 2 or 3 captions, so I have to settle on one. I'll definitely.
All right, man. Wish you all the best, and I think it's a very, very important for everybody to read at the grassroots level to settle the problem, to understand the reality rather than living in or denying in the false assumptions, and especially the people who wants to look in other way and misled by some of the external forces who are misleading us and to wage a war against nation and the civilization. So which is bad for the nation and civilization, in fact. So thank you, madam. Thank you for that. On behalf of VHS Karnataka, I thank Dr. Leela ji for accepting our request and enlightening all of us on Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar's view on partition and complete population control on this Samvada. Thank you, Dr. Leela ji. And thank you,
Gopi ji. So at last we could make it. We have been talking about it for a long time. I had my own problems, and today I'm really glad that I could make it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for all this. Thank you, and thank you, Nikunji. Thank you, Tejas. Get well soon. We need you. And thank you, our other folks like Ishwarayaji and Gadigarakesh for all the help behind. And last but not least, thank you all the wonderful viewers for making this session really successful. And please do stay safe rather. And please do visit and register at www.vhsindia.org for further amazing online sessions of VHS Samvada. Dhanyavad and Jai Shri Ram.